Welcome to the Tuesday Night Charm Targeting Podcast. I'm your moderator, Ella. Tonight we have a special guest. And if you are new to the call, please stay on and we will get you some additional support, some additional TalkShoe podcast numbers, and some helpful links and websites. This is a solutions and educational-based podcast, but the views and opinions of my guests are not necessarily my own personal views and opinions. My goal is that everyone can obtain something out of tonight, especially a feeling of empowerment. If you have any suggestions, comments, questions, or especially are in need of some additional support, please don't hesitate to email me at tiangel2016@gmail.com. So, Stephen, I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, you have such an extensive history. I guess let's just start maybe, most of us know you as an actor and you've been a movie star. So maybe we can, how did you get into acting? What made you want to pursue it? Where were you living at the time? Maybe we can start back from that point on, prior to your target.
I was a jock in high school and incredibly vacuous. And I was kind of a popular kid. I wasn't a kid that got picked on or beat up. I played a lot of sports. I guess in terms of my morality or sensibilities or whatever. I mean, if someone on my team or even some kid in my high school gym class, if someone got picked on, now I wasn't a bruiser or anything like that, but I would stick up for the underdogs, and I always had a diverse sort of set of friends. I had my jock friends. I had my stoner friends, and I had my nerd friends. So I really didn't belong to any particular group, and I was never a group person per se. The woman I'm with now, I've been with her 14 years, and we actually dated way back in high school. So that would be like, what is it, Kim? Close to 40 years ago. So she knows my essence, who I was then, and, according to her, I really haven't changed much in terms of my character, I mean, I've been beat up, but I think that we all sort of develop our personalities by the time we're about 4 or 5. I think there's some theory anyway that once you're 4 or 5, you've kind of established who you are as a person. Your personality's kind of established, and then things that happen in life change you. But your character or who you are is kind of developed. And I was always a pretty honest kid. I was a wild kid. I came from a crazy mother. She was very much like a narcissist kind of personality type, but I really didn't focus on that too much. I just got busy doing sports, and then when I got out of high school, I got discovered by a modeling agent. Eileen Ford from New York had visited Vancouver, and she met me. So she invited me to New York, and then instead of going to New York, I went to London, England. And I was kind of short, to be a male model. And granted, I'm like 19 or 20 at the time. So, but I was very driven, I've always been pretty driven in all my endeavors. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So
what year was that?
That was like 1978.
Okay, 1978.
Yeah, I'm old. Hey, man. So anyway, then I became like a pretty successful young guy, in London, and
right.
It was the beginning of the punk scene. So I knew a guy that managed punk bands, and I had a Swedish girlfriend, and her best friend was dating this bass player in this band called The Clash. So I'd go to the Clash, playing these dives, and I'd see people slam dancing, and I thought, oh, gee, I can do that. I played hockey, I love bouncing into people. And I had a kind of wild, really diverse life in London. I got really successful. I was one of the first men to do Men in Vogue. If you ever saw the photos, it looks ridiculous because the trouser legs are way too long. I have sort of short legs and stuff. It's kind of funny now looking back. But I did that. Then I went to New York, and was kind of a wild guy in New York. And then I went out to Los Angeles, and I decided at 23 I wanted to be an actor. I actually met a business manager before I met anyone else, before I'd even really studied acting. And that's kind of sort of sums up Hollywood. You know, this business manager
Right.
saw me as a potential to make a lot of money. So he signed me up, and then I had, within about 6 months, I was signed by William Morris, and who was a big agent at the time. And then gradually, I know what happened. I got fired from William Morris because I couldn't get any of these auditions because I really wasn't any good at it at that point, you know.
Right.
And I hadn't really studied the craft or anything. But getting fired from William Morris was a fabulous thing for me because that made me dig my heels in. And I guess for anyone that's a TI or anyone listening to this, you know, I think our thoughts often are, how do I say this? I feel it anyway, invaded, or you take so much abuse that you start to doubt who you once were.
Right.
And I've gone through that progressively, off and on, up and down, for the last 21 years. I've been convinced I'm the biggest piece of crap. I've convinced myself I'm the biggest piece of crap. I've convinced myself I did so many things wrong. I mean, you know, you want to find fault with yourself because it's better to take responsibility for what you've done wrong than, I think, to turn around and blame everyone else. However, as a TI, there is certainly some blame that it's not on our shoulders, that blame. But, you know, I've always wanted to try to take responsibility for what I can take responsibility for. So,
Right.
and I've lost my confidence and I've regained it, and I've gone through so many of these crescendos, you know, the roller coaster of self-esteem and everything. But so I was very driven, and after getting fired from William Morris, I went and studied with a very good acting coach who had been the coach for Sean Penn and Angelica Houston and, you know, a lot of, at that time, top actors in Los Angeles. And I was so committed to that class, I would even drive to Oklahoma on a weekend to study, you know, people in Oklahoma to get a sense of the character I was playing, and then I'd drive all the way back, you know, with no sleep, go straight to class, and do this, you know, like Tennessee Williams play or whatever it was, you know. And then I started getting work, and I was acknowledged by my coach, and then I got a decent agent again. And then I started getting work, you know, and then I was starting to be a working actor. And
I see, like, in the beginning of your career, look, oh my gosh, you have so many credits.
Well,
when
I did, yeah. It's so long. Pardon?
When did you start getting film work? Because you have, like, Spring Fever, Amazon's, gosh.
Yeah, that was when I was still, like, very, you know, kind of green.
Yeah.
I was still finding myself.
Then you have, like, Behind Enemy Lines in 85, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Modern Girls, The Stepfather, Burglar, Cameo by Night, American Gothic. So then as time's progressing, you're getting bigger and bigger parts, I see.
Right, because you see, Tim Burton was a young director at the time. I now believe that Tim Burton's very, very dark and into the occult stuff. But at the time, you know, I didn't know.
Right.
You know, you're just trying to get work, and I meet Tim Burton, and him and I become friends, and then, you know, you go to dinner parties, and people talk about some pretty strange things, and you know, you just think it's just crazy talk or weird talk. You don't know if there's you know, you don't realize there might be something truthful behind any of it. Anyway, I did pretty well. Then I bought a bar. I was partners in a bar in Venice Beach, and I started a poetry night there, and then I fought my other two partners. One guy was Jim Budman. He was the brother of this guy, Michael Budman, who owns Roots of Canada. It's a big clothing company. They did both the Olympic jerseys, I guess, at one of the Winter Olympics. They provided both the U.S. and the Canadian team with their uniforms, and I was very close with those guys, and I fought to have a theater company in the bar, and then Sean Penn did his play in my bar, and he was married to Madonna at the time, and I'm this young 26, 27-year-old guy who's already lived in London, England, New York, and now Los Angeles, you know, and a guy from Canada originally, and everyone wanted to come to my bar in those days. So I was kind of on the map at that point, and I was starting to get good jobs, good acting roles, and I was really driven. And then I did a series. I bought a house in Hollywood Hills. I sold my partnership in the bar because those guys both ripped me off. Him and my other partner ran the Forum. I don't know if anyone on the line knows about Est or Warner Earhart or anything about like the Forum, Est. It was a weekend workshop where in a weekend you go and you're convinced that you're worth nothing, and then it's freeing, and you're suddenly, it's this cathartic experience from a weekend kind of thing. Now I don't believe in any of that crap, but at the time it was this weekend workshop, and people would have these cathartic kind of makeover things, right? But both my partners ripped me off in the bar, so I walked away. And then I bought a house under the Hollywood sign, and I had a horse up the street at this stables. And I just had my nice little life. And then I decided I was offered this series in Canada, which I didn't want to do. But I'd met a woman that was a English professor of theater, associate professor at USC. I knew her briefly. I wrote theater plays with her. I rewrote one of her theater plays. I wrote a screenplay with her. I never asked for any credit for this stuff. Anyway, she was pregnant. When I met her, she was suicidal. And I don't know who she was connected to or whatever, through the universities or whatever, or whether she was part of some kind of she's from a military family, and now I've learned much more about military families, and I've learned much more about, it sounds a bit trite, but any of the associated projects with MK Ultra, and a lot of the military bases were involved in those things at that time that she was growing up in Kansas. So I don't know for a fact if she was involved in that, but all I do know is I knew her for a very short period of time. I didn't convince her to have an abortion because even back then, I didn't really believe in abortion. So she had my child, and then she told me it wasn't my child, and I said, okay, and then I got hit with a lawsuit, and then I started paying child support before a judgment was made or a DNA test was made, and then this lawsuit just went on off and on for like 7 or 8 years. I spent like a fortune in lawyers. And every time she sued me, I had to go back to court, and even though I was paying child support, and I had to pay her lawyers. And that whole system out in California is really, really debilitating. And it was the first time, I think, that I'd ever gone through, up to that point, and I guess by that time I was about 30, 31, I hadn't really ever been accused of being a liar or being accused of being abusive towards women. I'd never had any false accusations. I'd never had to defend myself. I'd been wild, and I'd admit to anything I ever did, but I'd never been attacked like that, and it really, really affected me. It really hurt me a lot trying to defend myself against these accusations. Anyway, I was very depressed from that, to be honest, and then I was worried about paying my mortgage and my house up in the Hollywood Hills. So I was offered a series in Canada, which I really didn't want to do, which I didn't believe in.
What year was that, may I ask?
That was about 80. Let me see. That would have been 1990.
Okay.
So I came to Toronto to do this awful TV series with Christopher Plummer, and it was just awful. That was terrible. And I did 1 year, and then I told the producers, I don't want to do this anymore, and I asked to be let go. So I really alienated, I guess, these producers. And the one guy, Robert Lantos, is at the time was the most powerful film producer in Canada.
Right.
And he's I don't know how people feel about Zionists, but I really don't like them. I don't have anything against anyone that's Jewish. I thought for the longest time I was Jewish. I discovered I'm not. I'm actually Mennonite from my father's side, but I thought I was Jewish, I didn't really know.
Yeah,
so I don't have any hatred or anything to say about the Jewish community at all, but I do not like what Zionists represent. And Lantos is one of the few people that just right on the outside will admit he's a complete 100% Zionist, supporter of the Zionist movement and things like that. So I've spoken out about him in the last 8 years. I believe he stole a treatment that I wrote. So I'll try to jump ahead. So what happened is I met a girl while I was doing that series in Paris. I knew nothing about her. I think she was put on me. She turned out to be a prostitute and a call girl. I had 2 children with her. I believe she was mixed up with this Lantos guy. And
right.
Then when I came home unexpectedly and saw bruises on her face, and my 4-year-old son told me about men hitting mommy, I went to the Children's Aid in Canada, which is like community service or whatever, because I had a farm in Canada by then, and I'd sold my house in L.A. to pay off legal fees. And so I went to the police were called in. My 4-year-old son's life was threatened. He was threatened to be hurt if he talked to his daddy, me. I recorded that conversation, and I'll just say I've made maybe 300 copies over the years of that one conversation with my 4-year-old son 21 years ago. And I've had every single copy, whether it's a safety box, a storage space, a friend's place, a storage space. All the copies of that conversation have been stolen with the exception of the original, which I've kept in my possession at all times. So my children were stolen, taken to Europe. I hired lawyers to prevent that from happening. But the lawyers I hired, they were connected to this guy called David Tilson. His wife was the lawyer I'd hired. David Tilson's an MP. That means like a senator in Canada. And she filed in the wrong county, which is a joke because that's just ridiculous. She knew exactly where I lived. And my children were taken, my son and my daughter. They were 4 and 3. And then that's when the targeting started 21 years ago. And I kept trying to find out who had beat my ex-wife up and given her bruises and who threatened my son's life. And lo and behold, I'm now, on the shit list and hated and despised, 24/7 surveillance, cars running, 3 attempts on my life, cars running up sidewalks, 3 safety box break-ins at different banks, City National, another bank, Bank of America, and a bank in Canada. And actually, the bank in Canada, I brought my current girlfriend with me because I thought, you better come with me because weird stuff happens in banks. And we go in this bank in downtown central Toronto, and sure enough, my safety box, it's disappeared. And so I show them the key, I show them my receipt for payment, and the woman says these words that I've heard for 21 years, which is, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen this before." And my bank safety box disappeared out of a sequence, so I don't know how they managed to do that. And then I guess that's pretty much me up to date. I mean, that's
But during that, I understand you got targeted, but I noticed that when I look at your IMDb, it says that you did 21 Jump Street, and then you did Counter-Strike, A River Runs Through It, and you did all these big movies in The Bodyguard. Wasn't that after you were targeted? You were still able to work?
No, yeah. Here's how it happened. Bodyguard, I wasn't targeted. Not that I know of. You see, that's the other thing. Like, when did the targeting really start? Like, when was this woman from France that turned out to be a prostitute call girl and ritual abuse victim with generational family abuse? When was she put on me? She was put on me in 91. And then prior to that, who decided to do that? And then the other important thing to kind of mention is that in 1993, I was, because I looked at the film industry, and I looked at it in both the U.S. and Canada, and I thought, you know what? Why are the Americans always coming to Canada to do films? Why don't we, as Canadians, put together our own money and start our own production company? So in 1993-94, I was going to L.A., and this lawyer from Vancouver who I knew, John A. Hardy, who I find out later, his father ran the Canadian version of the CIA, which is called CSIS. Well, John A. Hardy was all over me, you know. He wanted to be involved. He had venture capitalists. He had people from the Vancouver Stock Exchange that wanted to invest. So I got involved with this John A. Hardy guy, and I was starting a company, and I was working in Vancouver, and he wanted to go for a drive. So I said, sure, John. So he picks me up in his car, and we drive across this bridge, and he said he wanted to go to West Vancouver. So I said, okay, and you have to go through this, over this large bridge. Well, we didn't really go anywhere in West Vancouver. So I'm like, well, why did we come to West Vancouver? And he's like, oh, I just wanted to go for a drive. And I'm like, okay. And then he turned around, and we came back across this same bridge, and that's when he announced to me that he wanted to call our production company Lionsgate Entertainment. So John Hardy, who knew Frank Giustra. Now, Frank Giustra is part of the Clinton Foundation, so it's really kind of ironic that I'm now currently living in this smaller city in Ontario in kind of a little, you know, apartment doing, like, you know, demolition jobs and stuff, right, and house construction. And, you know, you look at the elections, you look at Trump getting in, and then you hear about the Clinton Foundation, and then you hear about Haiti, and then they start looking at the Clinton Foundation and who are the biggest contributors to the Clinton Foundation. Well, whose name keeps coming up? Frank Giustra, the guy who basically assumed my company called Lionsgate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's you know, my story's so kind of, yeah, it's pretty, it's kind of, I guess it's large. I mean, you know,
yeah, I mean, it is. It encompasses a lot of time, and then, you know, it is. It's very expansive, and it's hard to say probably when it happened. And in your story, without the targeting, is really interesting and fascinating to most of us. And I'm sorry you ended up being targeted. Prior to becoming a target, had you heard about targeting? Or I know in LA some people know about MK Ultra. What was your previous knowledge prior?
No, absolutely nothing. I was such an idiot. I mean, I would play like spies in movies or mercenaries. In that god-awful Counter-Strike series, I played a mercenary. I had no idea. Like, I just, you know, I had a really great black girlfriend for 5 years that was a blues singer. I dated briefly Demi Moore, but like it was for like a summer, you know. And she wanted you know, the two of us to go on to these, like, you know, to be these big stars. And quite honestly, like, I really never really, when I started my acting career and through most of my acting career, I never really envisioned wanting to be like a Tom Cruise or anything. I really just wanted to do good roles. Like when I looked at actors, I looked at Sean's career, I looked at Gary Oldman's career. You know, I never really had any aspirations of being like this goofy movie star who has to like pose for pictures on a red carpet, you know. I'd done that as a male model. I didn't want to do that as an actor, you know. And I was shocked that I even got work as an actor because, you know, male models don't generally become, you know, actors. But I'd worked so hard at it, maybe I sort of shed that skin, you know. But I never had any aspirations of being, you know, some kind of, you know, goofy movie star. That was never.
Right.
It just wasn't one of my ambitions, right?
But it did seem like, you know, if you're in the acting business, they did want you to do commercials and bit parts. It kind of, sometimes people end up going that route, you know. And Matt LeBlanc, he was a kid from New York. He was a model. I don't know if you remember. And then he got into acting. So sometimes that happens. You know, if your face is kind of camera friendly, it kind of does make that evolution.
Oh, yeah. And that probably didn't hurt me in the beginning at all. But I was really, what happened with my acting coach, Peggy Fury, is that I fell in love with the craft of acting. It wasn't until I got fired from William Morris and went and studied with Peggy Fury that I, you know, they say, you know, like, I don't know, it's like passing through the eye of the needle. It's like I finally got it. Like I realized, wow, this is what I really want to do. Like I really loved, you know, the craft of acting. And any of the accolades and that kind of stuff, it was almost, I don't know, it wasn't, and you know, take in consideration, I was like a young guy, 21, and I was kind of like you know, a really successful male model in Europe. Like, you know, I'd gone through success at a really early age, and I dated celebrities at a really early age, so I wasn't that enamored. And when I got to Hollywood, to be honest, like compared to cities like London, Paris, Rome, New York, like Los Angeles is just like, yeah, it's like a great big shopping plaza, and they're one like, you know, monumental like, you know, iconic landmark is like the Hollywood sign, you know, like, you know, it's compared to cities like, you know, Florence, Italy or something, it's like, boy, that's cheesy, you know. So, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say I was, you know, like I liked doing yard work and fixing my house up and stuff like that, but I wasn't all that enamored with going to like celebrity tennis tournaments and stuff like that, even though I was a good tennis player, you know. So it wasn't something I did. I didn't really want to. You know, I think I did another interview where I mentioned, like, I hung out with drunk Mexican poets, you know, on Venice Beach. Like, didn't hang out with, like, you know, successful actors. Like, that wasn't, like, I really didn't, it wasn't that I didn't like them. I just had no interest, you know. I found the drunk Mexican poets or drunk El Salvadorian poets that had lived through, like, you know, some real crazy, you know, torture and trauma. I found, which is ironic, right, looking at my life now, but I always found those kind of people way more interesting because they actually, you know, there was something to their words and you know, their impetus for creating their poetry came from a real place. It wasn't just this kind of cheese bag place, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. You know, you were around a lot of different kinds of people, and, you know, you did a lot. You did so much in such a short period of time. Did you ever have a problem with drugs and alcohol?
Oh, I've drank to excess on occasion, for sure. Fortunately, I've never been I've never been a drug person.
Right.
I still smoke marijuana, but I mean, my version of smoking marijuana is like a puff, you know, every couple of days, or, you know, in some hash oil because it helps me sleep, or taking a tincture, which is a derivative of marijuana. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it actually helps me in my nerves and my post-trauma stuff. So I take tincture.
I'm sure.
But I'm not and then if I take too much tincture, I'm like, whoa, you know, I took too many drops, you know.
Because they try to, like...
I've never been a drug person, really. I did cocaine, but I don't think I ever bought cocaine in my life unless it was for someone else.
Just around. Yeah.
Yeah, I did cocaine because it 1979, 80, 81, New York City. My friend owned a limo company. I'd go to 54 and Xenon and the Mud Club, and all these club owners had, Steve Rubell and all those guys. They all had cocaine.
Yeah.
And, it was all free, and everyone was doing it. So yeah, I did it then, but I never really.
Right.
I don't know. It's funny. I never developed a taste for drugs really.
That's good. Because a lot of times they like to peg targets as being on drugs or being crazy and things like that.
I've had that. I've been accused of being a heroin addict.
Yeah. How did you find out about the word targeting, and who did you find something online? Had someone mentioned it to you? How did you realize that that's what?
I'm glad you asked. That's a really good question. So here's my version, and I think this is maybe why my story might be helpful. So I get targeted. My children are stolen. I'm now enemy of the state. And funny enough, 1990, okay, so I lose everything by 96, and I'm actually homeless by 97, and I'm sleeping on the Venice boardwalk. I have no friends left. My family has completely turned on me, and I have no support system. And in those days, 1997, I did not know anyone else that had gone through this. So at that time, not because I'm an egomaniac, but just because I didn't meet anyone else, I really thought I was the only person. And the only thing I could think is that this is like spy agency stuff. This is the way they could break in, and no sign of break and entry, get in my safety boxes, all the mind games and all the stuff that was done to me. My phone lines would be interrupted. I wouldn't get the person when I'd phone to call someone. My phone lines would be rerouted. And then I'd go into the office and ask to speak to the person that had talked to me on the phone. That person is we don't have anyone here that works by that name. So I knew my phone lines were being diverted. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So I didn't know anyone like me. And then in 2002, in 2000, I'd come to Canada from Los Angeles, and then I was staying at someone's farm in Halifax, and I get this call. No one's called me in like 6 months or whatever, for a job or anything, or a year, whatever. It's been a long time. So I suddenly get this call out of the blue that they want me for La Femme Nikita, which is a movie about spy game stuff. But it's all about a girl that's basically been programmed. And what they don't tell you in a series like that is that they start when the child's 2 and 3 or 4 years old, right? They don't start with the kid as a teenager. They start torturing and programming that child, ritual abuse. They start at a very young age. So I get this series. I do 4 or 5 episodes. And then, of course, nothing comes of it. And I moved to, and a lot of funny things happened during that time frame. I've kind of learned to live with not really a sense of paranoia, but like not jumping the gun, which means that I learned that I had to temper my reaction. In other words, if something happened, I couldn't automatically assume it was targeting. In other words, sometimes weird things happen. Sometimes you go to a restaurant, and sometimes there's an asshole. Like, in other words, not everything is targeting. But early on in your targeting, because you don't know yet, you assume that everything's related. So I had to temper that and fight the urge to assume it was all targeting kind of thing. A lot of it is targeting, but you find out later it's, oh my gosh, that was targeting. But I try to stop myself from lunging that's targeting. Does that make any sense at all? I'm sorry if that sounds long-winded.
It makes perfect sense.
Okay. So then with 2002, I moved to northern Quebec because there's no more work, even though I've just started this TV show thing. And I start doing construction, I think, and I make a short film. So I meet these guys, and it's really serendipity. And I've had so much luck, so much God intervention with my life. Like, I meet these guys that have a short film festival, and they say to me, "Oh, so you're an artist?" Because I was saying I reinvented myself as this Stephen Shellen by then, right? And I'm an artist. So they find out I was an actor, or I tell them, you know. And they say, if you write something, we'll do your film. We have a short film festival. We have cameras. And I'm like, great. Well, that night, I sleep in their offices at this artist collective place in northern Quebec, a place called Chicoutimi, Saguenay. And the next morning they come in, and I'm like, here. And I hand them 20 handwritten pages. And I didn't know it at the time, but the one guy was given a grant to write a screenplay, and he had writer's block. So when I hand him 20 handwritten pages, the guy has like a coronary. It's like, how did you do this? But I've had this story pent up inside of me, and I'd never done a short film before, but I had this story, and so I wrote out this fictitious story, but based on my truth, called Melancholic in Chicoutimi. Anyway, over the next 2 days, we shoot this short film. I have no expectations for anything. What happens is that little short film that we made for $55 went all over the world and went to the #1 festival in short films in France, this place in Clermont-Ferrand. And then they took it all over the world. And it was like this huge success for Canada. And, Telefilm Canada had a booth set up and had my film on their table. But, in Canada, most of these short films, all of them pretty much, they all get like $50,000 or $100,000 grants to make their short films. I made mine for $55. It went all over the world, and now I'm like Stephen Schellenberger, the short filmmaker, And then I had some art shows up there, and then I briefly had a girlfriend in Chicoutimi, this French-Canadian girl, and she worked as a graphic artist. So I'd go into her workplace at night when she wanted to work, and I'd go online at her office, and I was still kind of paranoid, I guess. I didn't want to give up my address. I was still going through a little bit of harassment, nothing major, but just mostly phone stuff, mostly, banging on the door, nobody there, that kind of thing as soon as she went to work. But nothing, certainly no one driving up sidewalks after me or anything like that, So I went online in her office at night, and I found out about, what was it called, mind control forms. So I read my story. I went on this thing called Mind Control Forums, 2002, and I basically read versions of my story, and that was the first time. So count it out, 7 years, I guess. 7 years I lived in this world alone, and had to temper everything I said to people. I knew I'd get locked up in a mental hospital if I spoke about what was really going on. I had to put the brakes on. I couldn't react. It was amazing. I had to almost change my DNA. I couldn't be this wild guy. I certainly couldn't be given to anger or any of those things. So for 7 years, I'd lived in this world thinking I was the only guy. And then I find out in 2002, oh my God, man, there's other people like me. And I found out from going on Mind Control Forum. So after that, I did a couple more short films. I had some art shows. What I do with my art is I find abandoned or discarded canvas or drapery fabric or even bed sheets, and I paint it, and then I sew it together, and I stretch it, and I make a painting out of it. And I'm trying to say that what people discard, because I felt discarded, what people discard in life is worthy of art. And, like, nothing's garbage until it's, completely destroyed and dead. But as long as there's life to something, then there's still life. There's still a. So I take fabric that people don't value, and I repaint it, and then I make paintings out of it. That's really essentially what my art is. So, 2004, 2002, that's when I find out I'm not the only one. 2004, I go and try to hook up with a guy who's a mercenary that I met because I'm trying to buy a satellite phone because my phone lines are still tampered with, and any human rights or any activists, anything I try to call to help me, phone lines go dead and weird stuff happens constantly. So I try to meet up with this mercenary weirdo guy I meet at a tattoo parlor in this place called Woodstock, and I can't find him. And then I get back on a train, and I find myself in London, Ontario, and I don't know how, but I remember my high school girlfriend's phone number because we stayed in contact, even though I hadn't talked to her in 7 years or something, but we were friendly for, periods of time after. But I remember her phone number, and I phone her, and she knows who I am exactly as soon as I call. And she says, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm at the train station." And she comes down and picks me up, and that's who I'm currently with for the last 14 years. 15 years. 15 in June. Did you hear?
I heard her. That's cute.
You didn't sound very excited, Kim.
I feel so old.
She just feels so old. Is it my fault?
No.
Anyway, so that's what happened. And because Kim's mother was a psychiatric nurse, and because Kim's known me since high school, and she's, she claims she's loved me since high school. Anyway, so she knows who I am. So I was really way more fortunate than a lot of TIs because after being alone for all those years and trying to convince different people and being homeless and choosing to be homeless and, after all those years, I actually reconnected with someone that knew my essence, knew who I was, and Kim is amazing because Kim, she'd been diagnosed with cancer, and she was given 5 years to live, and that was, 16 years ago? 17 years ago. So Kim already was distrustful of the medical profession, so I come along with my story, and she's already, and also her son was misdiagnosed, and he almost died. So Kim was kind of predisposed, I guess, to hear my story, and she knew I wasn't nuts. So, that's where I'm really lucky is that I have someone like Kim in my life for the last, almost 15 years. And then most of the films I do and most everything I do, her and I do it with her. She helps me or, whatever. But it really made a difference. Like for any TIs that have been isolated and discredited, it's the worst thing in the world to be isolated because when your family's turn, your friends turn, and the chance that you're going to go out in public and meet someone that's going to understand what you're talking about, it's almost impossible. Maybe it's changing a bit now, but like we're lepers, and people just don't want to know.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. That's a good way to say it. Some of these relationships can come back. I'm working on mending some myself, but, I'm happy that you were able to find your high school sweetheart, and it still kind of has there's tragedy, but, you found your high school sweetheart, and now you're making art. And what about activism? I know you're trying to get the message out, and what do you think needs to happen in order to stop this? what steps have you taken personally, and what steps do you think are the most effective?
Well, I'm amazed. I mean, I got to say, like, the glass is either half empty or half full. I'm looking at the glasses half full right now because, I mean, for the longest, I'm like one of the survivors of this thing for so long, people are actually right now, just in the last, say, 4 to 5 months, people are actually, I think a lot of it has to do, believe it or not, with things like child trafficking being exposed, what the Clinton Foundation is up to, people coming to realize how evil the governments are, the pedophilia in D.C., London, all over, major countries all around the world. Like, this is all getting out there. Whether mainstream wants it or not, it's getting out there. So it's causing a lot of people to question a lot of things. And I think that for the first time, the last 3 to 4 or 5 months, people are more willing to actually hear about what, a targeted individual is. And I often reference that article. I think that's like a badge of honor, the fact that the New York Times, because Dr. John Hall had contacted me, a couple of producers, unrelated, but 2 producers in Los Angeles wanted to do shows on targeted individuals. Well, both those things got canceled. And I told both producers, you're probably going to get so far, and then somebody upstairs is going to say, no way, we can't do it. And that's exactly what happened. And then the New York Times writes this kind of scathing article on targeted individuals. And to me, that's like a badge of honor, because now we know the New York Times is nothing but crap, And the fact that the New York Times would write this, scathing article or this crappy article or, denouncing targeted individuals, why did the New York Times even bother? Well, because they were probably afraid that people were starting to understand or realize that maybe there was something to targeted individuals.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good sign. If the New York Times is trying to slam targeted individuals, that's a really good sign. That means we're actually making progress. But it's almost, Kim said today to me, it's like, target, like this kind of directed energy weapon, targeting all this stuff, it's torture. It's absolute torture. And it's people are almost more, people, it's more believable that there's pedophiles and there's people like trafficking kids and abusing children. It's like the last frontier seems to be this war on our minds and this targeted individual stuff, which is, it destroys you. It's torture. It's concentration camp torture, really. It doesn't look like it, maybe, and our neighbors don't see it like that unless they're in on it, but it's torture. It's absolutely torture. And I think people are coming around about it. The reason I've spoken out lately, there was no real reason other than, I was very involved in pedogate because of what happened to my children, and I believe my children were ritually abused. I don't know what my children are, really. I didn't see them really for the most part for 20 years. So, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. But their mother has every indication. She's got dissociative identity disorder. She has all the characteristics of someone that's been ritually abused, tortured, is a victim of all that stuff. And then what? You think they're going to leave my kids alone? No, very doubtful. So I have to live with that as well. But I can't remember what I was saying, but yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about, what's happened, what it's going to take, and we were just talking a little bit about, historically.
Oh yeah, and how we're going to change things. Well, I think things are changing. the only thing I know that really has benefited me and helped me. Remember, I had 7 years of this, and thinking I was the only person in the world. Maybe I was lucky in a weird way because I had to have a spiritual bond with God. I mean, I didn't really have any choice. It was either have a relationship with God or die or go to a nut house. And I had to let go of everything. And when your family hates you, and your friends that you've supported, let's stay at your home, you fed them. You're like, I was a good friend. I was good to my friends, and then they desert you. Well, there's just no rhyme and reason to it. So, really, my only connection when I was alone for all those years, my only connection really was with God. I really didn't have anything else. That's all I had. So, in a weird way, maybe it's maybe it's good. I mean, would I have had that close relationship with God had this not happened to me? Probably not. I had a relationship with God prior to this. My ex-wife hated God. I never did. But I certainly never developed a relationship like I've got with God if it hadn't have been for this. So it's one of those things. And, I just wanted to say this at the outset of the interview. I looked up when this first started happening to me, I found something from an old Webster's dictionary. I had looked up strength, the definition of strength. And, modern day, we think of strength as, I don't know, overpowering someone or Terminator and Schwarzenegger or something AI or, transhumanist like soldier, strength is overpowering. And the old Webster's dictionary, the definition of strength was the ability to survive. So for anyone out there listening, if you're surviving, you're exhibiting strength. And it doesn't mean that you overpower someone. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means the ability to survive. And I love that. And that kept me going also for years,
Yeah, I like that. And with inner strength sometimes comes wisdom as well.
Yeah, well, I hope so, I kind of fluctuate on that one. I fluctuate between has this really helped me, or how much wisdom have I gained? I know I've gained wisdom, and it's awful because I've seen so many things unfold the last say 5 or 10 years, and getting so many emails from people, but I've seen so much change in terms of just people waking up basically, and I was prior to this happening to me, I'd help out homeless people, but I was never what I would consider some quintessential conspiracy guy. I was just living my life. I really wasn't preoccupied with any kind of conspiracy or anything like JFK, who killed him. I was like everyone else, or a lot of people. I just didn't really care. And what I've noticed is the last 5 to 10 years, wow, man, boy, a lot of things have changed. I mean, you got a president, and I'm not saying Trump's perfect because he's not, but for a while there anyway, he's calling mainstream media fake news. How awesome is that? That's pretty amazing.
That was really awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So your world, the world that we've thought we've lived in, and the world that I thought I lived in all those years ago, it's a much different world than that. And I think that's why things are changing in the last, 4 to 6 months or whatever with TIs. I find that it's just the timing of it. Right now, people are actually they're just willing to listen. And I know that Dr. Catherine Horton has come on your show, right?
Yes, she's been on the show a couple of times.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, she is. She's one of our little
really great. And, you know, she has to struggle, too, because, and that's so telling. You know, we know she's telling the truth, right? But she's had to struggle as well because her husband doesn't know what to think half the time, whether it's real or not. And yet, there's nothing about Catherine Horton that comes across as unstable, a liar, embellishing a story. You know, like Catherine would have no reason to tell her story if it wasn't real. You know, and you know that's the other thing. It's like none of us would ever invent. Like, take me, for example. I was a successful or relatively successful, you know, actor, right? Hollywood actor. Why would I invent a story that cost me my credibility, that destroyed my life? You know, like, what kind of lunatic would I have to be to invent a story that's so unbelievable if it wasn't true?
Yeah.
There's no reason.
And then
You know,
so many of us get our, you know, our mental health comes to question for a lot of people around us. How about your family? Do you have family that are coming around? I mean, because this is coming out, and you know we have to say, you know, thanks to the internet for the most part. But
I have a really kind of rotten family. My sister, when she was 16, she was involved in some really dark stuff. And she cut the head of a cat off, and it's rumored that she was involved with the Satanic Church in Victoria. So, and I never had much of any kind of relationship with my older sister, so it doesn't really surprise me that. And my sister's also, of course, in the you know, she's the one that decides if an elder person is mentally stable or not, that kind of thing. Like, you know. I mean, I don't even know what she's done to elder people in Victoria. I can only imagine it's horrendous. But, yeah, my sister's despicable. And so, you know, like, for the longest time, I just wanted to forgive her, and she doesn't understand and everything. No, my sister's just plain evil. Like, she's just worthless, just a piece of garbage. Like, at a certain point, you have to kind of cut people loose. And, you know, you pine over your family or you pine over your friends, and then at a certain point you just have to go, wow, those people were like garbage. You know, like they're just awful. Like, you know, I can't even wish her well, you know. Like, I don't think she's done anything. She hasn't contributed anything to life. She's contributed nothing to this world, to humanity, nothing. So, no, my sister. It's just garbage. Like, you can't beat yourself up. Like, I remember I said on the outset, like, I try to take responsibility for as many things as I can. And I beat myself up so badly over the years because, I did this wrong or I did that wrong or, you know, I punched out that guy that shoved his girlfriend in the bar and I shouldn't have and things like that. It's like my sister cut the head of a cat off when she's 16. Like, she was involved with probably the Satanic Church in Victoria. Like, I got nothing in common with her, and I never did. She hates my guts. She wants to see me destroyed, so cut her loose. You know, there's nothing to be gained there.
Yep, we just have to, you know, we can't really choose our family, but, you know, we don't have to spend time with them. We just surround ourselves with people that are supportive. And
that's it.
You know, I look forward to the day where people who've kind of turned their backs on us or kind of just written us off as crazy or unstable, that they come to us and apologize and say, oh, you were right, I'm so sorry, you know.
Well, just think of St. Stephen in the Bible. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
You
probably know better than me.
St. Stephen's the guy that is telling the truth, and you know, and then Saul and his buddies stone him to death. And then it's after Stephen's been killed that Saul, you know, comes around and realizes, oh, my God, I made a mistake, you know. Like, I don't know. I'd love that. I pined for that for years, that friends would come to me and say, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I've not had one single person do that with me. And I knew a pile of people, and I was a super popular guy in LA and different places. I've not had one single person ever come to me and apologize. From where?
Yeah. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but, I think, but you've noticed over the years, because this has been happening to you so long, and I've talked to other people who've been experiencing this, 10, 20, even 40 years, and they're still skeptical. They have set in skepticism, of course, after 30, 40 years, but they have seen a change, and so that gives me hope.
Yeah, I wouldn't really pine for that too much. That's something that I think we have to kind of let go. Because I just don't think that's. I don't know. That means we're still off balance, hoping that they come around and realize. And it's like, it's on God's time. It's not on their time. And it's like, have you not noticed how sometimes once people make up their mind, that person's crazy. Like about me, let's say. Let's say it's my neighbor. Let's say just arbitrarily, like some neighbor decides I'm nuts, right? And I try to convince this neighbor, no, I'm not nuts. And the harder I try to convince the neighbor, look, here's some coffee and here's some soup I made. And the harder I try to convince my neighbor I'm not nuts, it's almost like the more the neighbor's going to believe I'm nuts, And that's why in my case anyway, I found my best. It's not that I'm going to ignore them per se, but I'm just going to go on and live my life, They can see what I do. They can see the films I make. They can see the art I make. Like, I couldn't be crazy and write, direct, and star in a film, which is out right now in festivals. Like, I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have, put together an art show this last Saturday. Like, I couldn't go and work every day doing demolition work on houses. Like, if you really want to analyze me, well, look at what I do. Like, look at my works, but I find that when I've ever been off balance trying to convince someone I'm not nuts and it's real, it just seems to be, and obviously the people that design this, whether it's the Nazis or, the paperclip guys that came over in conjunction with all the scientists here, well, however they designed this, this targeting, they knew what they were doing. Like they've spent, and when you hear about the Pentagon missing $7.7 trillion, well, that's all like black op money. That's their secret science projects, and that's the stuff that they've done with us. I mean, they have worked their ass off and funded this torture incredibly to like destroy people like us. So for us to try to undo that, I'm not saying it's a lost cause. I'm just saying ignore them,
Yeah, and ignore them till there's some evidence, I guess. I know people are working on that. And your contributions help, too, just people coming forward and talking about what's happened to them and people seeing the correlations as this, slowly unfolds, I think is, I'm grateful for you for doing that.
Yeah, I didn't do anything great, really. I mean, I just survived it. I survived it for myself and for my kids. My kids were always, the only reason I ever stuck with this was for my children, really. I never got my kids back. I never, and my kids act completely like, hey, Dad, after me not seeing them for like years and years, and everything's normal. It's like everything's not normal, So that's really strange. But, I kind of want to see like us being targeted. It's almost like, it sounds so bizarre maybe some people would be offended, but it's almost like a kind of badge of honor. It's like we must have been selected for some reason. And then when you also consider like, well, how many people in mental hospitals and how many people in prison and how many of the homeless people that you see, I mean, how many of these people, were targeted, and like no one's ever gonna believe them. You know, like you just wonder how much of the general population has actually been targeted. I bet you it's a lot higher than what we think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can only imagine. I mean, that just makes sense to me. And there's so many people sitting in their houses that don't know what's happening to them. Or there's people that are going through things that just, you know, they're just trying to make sense of whatever's happening in their life. And you know, if they start to look into it, they might realize nothing's making sense. But it takes a while. I was targeted for quite some time before I knew what was going on until it became overt. So
when did you get targeted? What year?
It started in about 2003, 2004 is when I look back when there was a profound difference in the way people treated me, and I started having some strange physical things were happening to me. That's just when things changed right then. And then I was being followed, but I didn't think anything about it. I just thought, oh, people in LA are just weird or whatever. And then I moved to Oregon, and I just started to notice things happening. And it's kind of a complicated story, and I'll share it sometime on another one. But, yeah, it kind of followed me up to here, you know, and then it was behind a particular man who was stalking me is how it all started, really. But I believe he was part of the covert aspect of these type of programs, you know, because a lot of this, too, is not just the stalking, the COINTELPRO, the Stasi. Some of this, in my personal opinion, I mean, I've come to believe some of this is actually experimentation.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah, that's what I mean about the trillions of dollars that they lost at the Pentagon. Like,
right.
And all the child trafficking money and all the drug money they've made, the CIA. Where's all that money gone? It's all like undocumented money, right?
I know.
It's all gone into these kind of projects. Like,
yeah.
They want to control how we think, and you know, like, that's the deal. And we are probably, I mean, I've thought about that. I'm not saying I was the number one or the first guy. I know I wasn't, but we're all some kind of crazy experiment. I really do believe that as well. Like, you know, they have studied us and they watch us and they watch our reactions, and it's like, what a bunch of fucking losers. Sorry, but what a bunch of losers. Imagine wasting your time, like, you know, torturing people and then monitoring their reactions. Like, what a bunch. Like, anybody here that's listening in that's from one of those agencies, get a life. My God, how pathetic.
And how can they sit there and listen to
live your life like that? What a waste of space you are.
Well, Stephen, you know, at this point, if it's okay with you, can we do questions and answers? There's people who have their hand raised that would like to ask you questions. Would that be okay?
Someone's going to tell me to go straight to hell or something.
Oh, go to hell, Stephen. Come on.
Oh, it's Melinda.
It's Melinda. Yes, my dear friend Stephen. How are you? You sound wonderful.
I'm just so pissed off. I can't believe it.
Why?
Well, I always get pissed off talking about this crap. But anyway, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
I made a great painting today, so that's good. My painting was all about my labs, and it's all about experimentation. So it's funny that came up.
You would think that the MyLabs would have at least come out. You know, that's what's interesting is the super soldiers. They have conventions, and yet nobody has picked up on the MyLabs.
Yeah.
Because that's, you know, straight to AI. But anyway, you know, I studied with Peggy Fury, too. What year did you study with her?
I studied with her after William Morris fired me, so that would have been about 82, 83.
Yeah.
And that's when Sean was there, and Nicolas Cage was there, and Michelle Pfeiffer and her sister Dee Dee were there. And there were 3 classes. I don't know. Were you in one of the classes? Or were you doing privates?
No, in the classes. We had a good class, too. I was with Milton around that time, Milton Casellas, and we had tons of people in our class, too. You know, the movie star classes.
Yeah.
Peggy I adored. I just wonder if Peggy was targeted, you know, the way she died. So
no, because she used to fall asleep in class.
Well, I know she had narcolepsy, but...
Yeah.
but she kind of had that under control. But and driving on the freeway, she would be really cautious. So it was kind of strange.
Do you remember Bill? Do you remember Bill Traylor?
Yes, Bill Traylor. Yeah.
Yeah, I was one of the few people in class that really. Bill would get mad at me and stuff, but I got a lot out of his sensory work. I used to love doing his class.
With Peggy too, she was wonderful with it. But Bill could be cruel.
Yeah,
Bill had quite a temper.
Yeah, he's an alcoholic. He'd show up like drunk at 10 in the morning.
Mm.
You remember Bill like reeking of booze at 10 in the morning?
No, I wasn't. Bill was not in my class. Although I spent Christmas Day with him. I've got a call coming in.
Okay.
Hold on one sec.
Okay, while we're waiting for Melinda, this time I'm going to start from the bottom up. I have them in numerical order, but apparently the order is not accurate. So I'm going to start with Southeast Florida.
Okay.
Hi, Southeast Florida. You're on the call. Do you have a question for Stephen? Sometimes they have their phone muted.
Out of the way.
Hello?
Hello?
I don't. We'll go to the next person. Sorry, we couldn't hear you very well, so I'm going to go to Colorado. You're next on the list.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. I'm Tracy. I'm from Colorado. I've been a TI for about 8 years and didn't know it. Just found out this past August.
Wow.
And I've been getting hit really, really hard because they bragged about it, and I researched it, and I've kept going since then. I even moved from the town that I was in, and I've been in a new town in 2 months, and they've already been doing stuff here. But my question, I guess, is, I love your story, by the way, but my question is, they've got my daughter doing this, and they just recently sabotaged someone that I still love, that I was with for 3 or 4 years. And they have gotten him to turn. I'm not sure to the extent, but I know to some degree, because the voice to skull can be so iffy, you know. How do you move on from that when do you just hope they get out, that they get away from these people eventually, or how do you deal with when stuff like that happens? What did you do that helped?
What do you mean when someone turns on you mean, or?
Yeah, my daughter has, and then this guy recently, just a few months ago.
And was there a reason why he turned?
They contacted him. My daughter and this guy that's the perpetrator is from 8 years ago that I was with briefly, and he's been doing this to me the whole time and kicked me out of places, 2 or 3 apartment complexes, and just all kinds of stuff. And so they recently contacted him this past August, I believe, maybe even a little before. But, yeah, and he has talked to me a little bit, and it was good and positive and everything, but I can't tell if he's, leading me on or just doing some gaslighting with them, or feels torn between them and me, because they're smearing me to him and trying to smear campaign me right now with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know really. My thing is, for the longest time, I would try to win those people over, and I'd spend a lot of energy trying to, convince them, and you know what? I had so many of those kind of relationships where I'd find out later they're rummaging through my stuff. They're doing things behind my back, and so I just cut those kind of people loose. I know
that. I know the people that are doing this for the most part, and he's going to get hurt by them. But I can't, because they're basically new to him, and there's a lot of felons, a lot of criminal stuff, drugs, and things like that involved. And
I think you just have to cut them loose and move on.
Yeah.
It's the only way. It's like self-preservation.
Do you leave it open for them in case they finally realize, they don't want to do that? Or
well, did you hear me? At the end of the interview, I said I've never really had one single person from my family or from my old friends ever come and apologize or say, "Oh my God, we realize now." I've never, in 21 years, and this is like after a monstrous amount of creative work I've done, my film on targeting, all the stuff I've done, my artwork, all the things I've done. And yet people will still choose to believe, I'm crazy, I'm nuts. It doesn't matter about my kids. That's what kills me. They don't care about my kids. They don't care about what happened to my kids.
Yeah.
I'm just a lunatic. It doesn't matter. And they've made up their minds, and I can't change it. So I just learned for self-preservation just to. It's not that I hate them or anything like that, but I'm just not. I'm not going to have anything to do with them. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pine over those losses. It's awful, but.
Yeah, I recently had my daughter. I took her off the will because I've known, kind of suspected for a few years, but I didn't want to believe it and was just kind of trying to fix the relationship. But I just recently took her off the will because if something happens to me, and she's doing this at her own mom. I mean, it's pretty. Yeah, it's upsetting.
We don't know how. That's one of the great mysteries. Like, and for anyone else listening, it's a really good question actually, because that's one of the great mysteries. I don't know how they turn people. I don't know how they do it. I really don't know. I don't know whether people are having like directed energy weapons affect their moods. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And because I've been with Kim for 14 years, we have seen people that we had living with us for free just suddenly turn and hate us and hate me in particular.
Yeah.
And it's like I didn't do anything for that to happen. So we've just now we assume, you know what? There must be some kind of like mood,
doing it to them too.
mood thing they do with people because nothing else makes sense. It just doesn't make any sense. There's no reason for it.
I think they do it to them to also antagonize them at the target. I think they microwave them too, or whatever waves they're getting to keep doing negative or to turn, because it's so snap. I mean, it's so weird. I mean, it's just like a complete.
No, it is. It's really weird. It's one of the hardest things as a target to understand, because in normal life, like let's just say we're normal people, and I get drunk one night, and let's say you've got a boyfriend, and I don't have a girlfriend, and I'm friends with your boyfriend, and then one night I'm really drunk, and I come on to you, or something stupid like that, right? But it's not terrible. I'm flirtatious, whatever. Your boyfriend gets mad at me, and then the next day it's like, oh, man, I'm sorry. And then, your boyfriend and I, we make up, right? It's like, well, you were an asshole. And I'm like, I know I was an asshole. I'm really sorry, man. I had too much to drink and, blah, blah, blah. And I really wasn't flirting. I was just, you were flirting. Don't lie to me. And I'm like, okay, I was flirting a bit, but, come on, man. You're my friend, And it's that kind of thing. And then people make up. Like you talk things out, you get angry, and you make up. When you're a TI, you don't have those exchanges. There's not a room. There's no room for like. There's none of that negotiation. There's none of that like sensibilities. It's like, it's like someone just turns on you, and then you're like, well, why do you suddenly hate me so much? And it's like they can't really give you a good reason.
Yeah.
I know. It's one of the great mysteries of being a TI. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question because it's so. All I can do is just say, you just got to move on, because there's no other explanation, and there's no way to. There's just no way to correct it. I don't know why. I think it's one of the worst things about being targeted is that your relationships and your friendships are like. People turn on you, and you don't know why. There's no tangible good reason.
Yeah.
And when you ask them what's the tangible good reason, they even can't give you a good tangible reason.
No.
And they'll just scream that you're crazy, and it's like, okay, well, I'm crazy. So what? Does that mean you hate my guts?
Yeah. Or they'll believe the smear campaign. They'll believe the smearing without even talking to the person.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. But I definitely think they're influenced by they're getting beamed too in some way negative to be at the target. Yeah, to isolate.
Because if I hear something about you, and let's say it's a smear campaign, and let's say I hear that you you did something, you were stealing money from people at work and things. Well, if you confronted me, or if, like, let's say that, you and I, like, what's wrong? What did I ever do? Eventually I'm going to break down and go, look, I heard you're stealing from people at work. But in my 21 years, no one's ever come clean and told me, I hear you're stealing from people at work. Like, I never get a decent explanation. Like, they can't really give me a reason why they hate me or what I've done,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. Unless it's so horrendous, unless it's like, we're framed as like pedophiles or child traffickers. There's no other really good explanation for why people can turn on us and hate us so much.
That's the angle they're doing at me right now, is child abuse, trying to.
Oh, they're doing that on you?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awful.
They've tried insanity, they've tried prostitution, drug addiction, and this is one of the last things that all of a sudden came up in August. And
how did you find out?
Just by talking with people, I guess, messages, voice to skull, knowing some of the people there and what they do.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So people are going to believe that, of course, because that's a horrendous thing to say.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, these people that are doing this to us, that's what they're actually engaged in.
I know.
Like, my ex-wife was involved in trafficking children in Cambodia at a phony orphanage. And yet, yeah, I know. And yet, I'm the dirtbag, or I'm the bad guy. It's just so unreal.
Well, and I turned in one of my neighbors that was involved in this group to Child Protective Services, and she had been turned in before. And it's pretty much this drug dealer guy and his group of friends that are all drug customers or corrupt former law enforcement with them that support him in this little town of
1,500. Okay, well, that's probably what it is then. But the sad thing is that you can't even move out of that town and get away from it. It follows you.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a network. Like, this isn't just your little town.
Yeah.
I know, and that's the scary part, too, to realize. It's like, you can't move out of the country and get away from it, which I tried to do.
Yeah.
What is this network?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I refuse to completely uproot my life for them because they've already taken enough as it is. So I'm not going to move again.
Where are you in Colorado?
I was up in Steamboat Springs, and I'm in Colorado now. In Fort Collins, Fort Collins. Okay.
Because I've been to Boulder. I had a funny thing in Boulder happen. I went there just for one day, and I ran into a guy, and his girlfriend knew all about John Benet Ramsey, and I had my own ideas about that. This is like 1999, and I met this woman who told me she was absolutely killed in a ritual abuse ceremony at Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And I wasn't even looking for it, Like, I was just going for a cigarette and then going to get a Coca-Cola at a Walmart, and I meet this guy, and we start talking about John Benet Ramsey. I brought it up. I'm like, well, that little girl should put this place on the map. And he said, don't talk about that around here. And I said, well, I do have a theory. And he's like, what's that? And I'm like, well, I think she was killed in a ritual abuse ceremony. And he just lost it. And he's like, you've got to talk to my girlfriend. You've got to talk to my girlfriend. And he drags me inside the store when it opened, and then she insisted on meeting me for a coffee, and she basically confirmed everything I'd said. And this is like, 1999 or 98.
Mm-hmm.
So, that whole network is right there in Boulder as well. Like, it's dark,
Yeah. Yuck. Scary.
Anyway.
Stephen?
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your answer. I appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, Stephen, hi, it's Melinda. I'm sorry. This is the first call I've had today talking with you guys, and the perp called me. It was a perp because he hung up immediately when I switched things, and then hung up on your line, so I apologize.
That's all right.
But anyway, I have news about the film festival in Catalina, which I'll email you.
Okay, just email it to me. Don't say it on here.
No, I won't.
Okay.
But, for some of your work, it might be a good venue for you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Melinda.
You're welcome, sweetheart. Now, somebody on the chat room wanted us to talk more Hollywood, but you have a lot of questions. And if you're still standing after all the questions that are going to come to you, we'll talk Hollywood, okay?
All right, honey.
All right, sweetie.
All right, bye.
Okay, guys.
I'm here.
Okay, guys, let's keep the questions relatively short because I can't be on very long tonight. And I want to give as many people as I can the opportunity to ask questions with Stephen. So I'm going to go to California now. Hi, California.
Hi, I had a question. You had mentioned that in all the time that you had been targeted, that you didn't have your relationships kind of resume to their normal state, except for your children, and you're aware of the change or the shift in reality, I guess, that's happened, because you know the things that have transpired, and they're acting like everything is okay. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? I know it's kind of a vague question, but it's just I've had some relationships that are kind of restored, but I will never trust those people again.
Yeah.
And I do think they are being hit and manipulated, and I know that they've been subjected to a smear campaign because they shared real things that I've done and made up ones that I never shared with anyone. So.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I guess in answer to that question, I don't think I've ever had any. Boy, it's kind of sad. Maybe it's my fault. I don't think I've had any of those relationships ever restored. The people that I initially trusted when it first happened. I don't think I've had any of those.
Uh-oh. That might be her line. Let me go ahead and put her on mute. But you can go ahead and answer the question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had any of those relationships really restored. I've had little blurbs from people saying you were always telling the truth, like a little message like that in Facebook. So I guess that's kind of a success. But no, I never really. My family, my friends. No, I've never had any. I've never had any of that restored. I've never had any of it. And honestly, like the people that I trusted, because I really had to trust, because I think if we don't trust anyone, we're almost dead. So I knew that I had to somehow make a choice to trust people, regardless of what I was going through, because to be that alone like I was and homeless, it was brutal. So I would trust people knowing I was probably going to get burned, and I did get burned, and I'd find people, rifling through my stuff or betraying me or lying to me. So I never went through this ever before in my life, so I know there was a marked difference. But what caused people to do this, I really don't know. Was it someone like a Robert Redford, who was into prostitutes? I don't know. I don't know why people would have done it to me. I never had any of those relationships ever restored, though. I never trusted those people again. And I don't spend a whole bunch of time thinking about them. I just sort of had to, you just kind of, what's the old expression in a war? Yeah. I don't know, something or rather, drop, lock, and reload or something. It's just like you just, you just learn to kind of step over people. It's not like I'm trying to kill anyone or hurt anyone, but it's like I just learned to step over people. Like my own survival is more important than, spending time on people that have already betrayed me. I just can't do it, and I just can't waste the time, and I don't trust them anymore, and they betrayed me once, twice, 3 times. Like, no, I'm not going to waste any more time on it.
Yeah. Well, you never know. Well, number one, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Number two, there's other people out there, even within our own community, that we can trust. And
that's right.
out of it. You know, we may lose some friends, but we pick up some friends on the way, and that's the silver lining. That people believe me. I don't have to pretend, and I don't have to say I have fibromyalgia or whatever nonsense just to get by, you know. So, and that's another thing. I don't like having to say that, you know, and I don't know how you feel, like make things up because you can't share the truth because it's so, quote, unquote, unbelievable to the normal person. So that part's hard. Yeah, that's been really tough. Okay, so let me go to Vermont. I think Vermont is next here. And so, again, try to keep the questions short so everyone can have an opportunity. Stephen's a popular guest, so.
Okay.
Hi, Vermont.
Thank you, Ella. Stephen, I wanted to thank you so much. So much what you said is so relevant, and I'm so sorry for your, you know, the loss of your family, your children, and the 7 years that you were alone. I just can't imagine.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you found Kim. That's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, me too.
And another thing I wanted to say, I was glad to hear you mention Operation Paperclip and human experimentation. And as you go forward, I hope when you speak about the community, you always mention that, because some of us feel that this is actually all about human experimentation.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to mention 2 great books, Undue Risk by Jonathan Moreno and CIA Doctors by Colin Ross.
Oh, I know the Colin Ross book, yeah.
Good, okay. And I guess the question I would have for you is how did you survive and come out of being homeless and like at the bottom on your own? You know, how did you get through that? What did you do?
You know what? Okay, the honest answer is I knew I had to kind of almost trick myself, and I knew I had to almost change my DNA in reaction to things. I couldn't be quick-tempered because I used to be kind of quick-tempered and things. So I knew I had to really kind of alter my DNA in order to deal with this. And then what I did was when I was homeless, I would just put one foot in front of the other. And it was really, you know, very depressing. But I took some kind of weird pride. I took some strange pride in the fact that I'd survived or that I was surviving. And so I sort of almost tricked myself into thinking that no matter what they're throwing at me and doing to me, I'm surviving. And honestly, like that quote I found, or the Webster's Dictionary of strength. That quote, that Webster's Dictionary, I hope it's still available, about strength is really just the ability to survive. That really empowered me a lot. So, yeah, I was all alone, and I knew that I didn't understand what this was. I thought I was the only guy in the world going through this. And I almost like tricked myself into feeling some sort of sense of gratification or pride, knowing that, you know, through all of this, I was still surviving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, and I'll let others ask questions. So I thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. Thank you so much. Okay, so now I'm going to come up to California. Hi, California.
Hello.
Hi.
My phone dropped off for a couple of minutes right after he started talking about when it started. There was a lot of surveillance and he was getting a lot of stuff stolen. But so my question is, so I didn't hear if he talked about any directed weapons.
Okay, good. Glad you brought that up because that's something that I don't generally talk about a whole bunch. Most of my surveillance, and I don't know why, but most of my targeting has been COINTELPRO type targeting. You know, I've had sleep deprivation. I've had all that other stuff done through all the harassment that I went through. As far as getting burned and heavy hit with directed energy weapons, I don't go through a lot of that. and I don't know why. I'm almost kind of apologetic because I know people do get hit with directed energy weapons. I have a very close friend, Susan Littleton, who's really been hit hard. I've got another friend now who's getting hit hard for supporting me. So I know it's a very real thing, but and I probably am getting hit, and I probably have had a lot of it, but I don't know. I choose. I guess I don't know if I made a choice not to go there, or I have extreme tiredness for no apparent reason. I have all those kind of things. I have a lot of aches and pains. I have, but I've never seen burns on my body, so I don't know why. But as far as like directed energy weapons, I don't really experience that I know of a lot of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering her question.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to address that, because people do assume that if you're targeted, you're going through, heavy directed energy weapons, and for some reason it's just not something I've experienced or that I go through a lot. I might be, but
you might be getting the kind that you just can't feel, the covert kind, and it does affect your energy levels and things like that, and your thinking, as we know. So who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, Arizona, I have you unmuted. Do you have a question for Stephen?
I do. First of all, Stephen, hi, this is Yaya, and I want to thank you for being on the show and sharing your story. It's very interesting, and you should be so proud of yourself for surviving and doing as well as you have. But early on in your testimony, you said something about the CIA, and you said something about CSIS. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, it's the Canadian version of the CIA, essentially.
Oh, okay. Do you know how to spell that?
Yeah, it's CSIS. It's the hyphenated version. It's Canadian Security Establishment, whatever it is. Yeah, they call it CSIS. CSIS. And my partner in the production company, Lionsgate, his father had apparently run CSIS. And I'd gone to see this guy early on in '96, and I said, "Please, John, help me. You're my partner in our production company." And he said he can't help me. And then I said, "Well, can't your father help me?" He said, "No, my father spent his whole life killing people. He doesn't have any friends." And then I said, "But what about our production company?" And he said, "We never had a production company."
Oh, wow. So what was that all about then?
That guy was a major creep.
Yeah.
And that guy was a part of all this, and that guy is, very involved with Frank Giustra, who's with the Clinton Foundation, and the Clinton Foundation is pretty, pretty vile. I mean, they're involved in trafficking and child trafficking and all kinds of things, and yeah, they're just bad, all around bad people. But I didn't know any of that, and when I got mixed up with this lawyer guy, I had no idea, how nefarious his family was and how bad that whole thing was.
The other thing is, have you been implanted? Have you been scanned?
Yeah, I've been scanned. I don't seem to have an implant.
Oh, well, good for you.
I don't seem to have one. I don't know,
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know. They say there's brain mapping, and that they can track us just from our, what is it? Can't remember what it's called. But that we all have a certain, footprint,
Right, like our fingerprints.
Yeah, I mean, I think this technology is so advanced now that, I think that, I mean, when you think that Tesla came up with so much information over 100 years ago, and they just forgot about Tesla? They just forgot about all the information and all its inventions? No, they knew exactly what Tesla was up to, and all that stuff that Tesla was doing has just been, fine-tuned, and I think that's where the trillions of dollars go from all over these, all around the world, all these different countries, and that we're like, we live in this world that we think, is this particular way, and it looks the same. But the whole Orwellian aspect is that, it looks the same, but man, there's a whole another world going on, and a lot of that's all these advancements, and they say they're making advancements like 40 years increments for 1 year. So imagine, I don't know, it's just scary as hell. But I think the technology is like out of this world. So I think that if they want to brain map you and have a footprint on you, I don't even think they need an implant anymore.
Yeah. Right.
That's just my theory.
And then I just want to mention something briefly. You mentioned EST. I just happened to go to an EST.
Oh, good.
No, it turned out awful. I left because it physically made me ill. I thought it was horrible.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I left. I didn't finish anything. I left like just halfway through, and then they didn't like that, so they kept calling me at home and telling me that I kind of broke the rules by leaving.
Oh, fabulous.
I physically had a physical reaction. I got physically sick.
Okay, well, that's probably, EST in the form, when I look back and think about it, that was probably all a sub-project of the CIA or one of the agencies. And the guy that was my partner, his name's Richard Condon, and he took over for Werner Erhard or whatever his name was. Well, that guy was the biggest jerk, and he was so untrusting, and he was paranoid. He was the exact opposite, because when I first learned about EST in the form, I thought, it's about spiritual awakening, and it's about bringing to light the best qualities in you in this weekend workshop. Well, I went to one of his, when he was first starting the form, I went to a weekend workshop because he invited me for free to go, and he wanted my opinion. So I went. And he was trying to convince the whole class, because you sit in these the big rooms, right, that they rent in hotels. And he was trying to convince everyone that we're all like just a grain of sand and that we mean nothing. And I put my hand up and I said, I can accept that I mean nothing, but you can't convince me that God means nothing. You just can't convince me that God means nothing. Well, inadvertently, I started like anarchy in this hotel conference room, and then suddenly other people had some courage, and they're like, yeah, how come God means nothing, and now everyone's, like rebelling. So then that night in the hotel room, because we did this up in Santa Barbara, that night in the hotel room, Richard Condon comes to see me, and he's like, what the fuck did you do, Shellen? Why'd you do that? And I'm like, why'd I do what? He's like, why'd you cause all that trouble in the room? And I'm like, because I don't believe God means nothing.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you.
So don't that EST and that form, all that crap, it's all just it's probably I'm sure if you look into it, it's probably a derivative of some CIA stuff. It's the same L. Ron Hubbard was friends with these guys and Crowleyism, and it's all the same crap,
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So, well, thank you so much. That's all I had. God bless you.
All right.
Okay, take care.
Hello?
Oh, sorry about that. I had myself muted. Okay.
Oh, good. I thought, oh, my God, I got ditched.
Never.
I'm having
okay,
self-esteem problems again.
Hi, Utah. You're on the line. Do you have a question for Stephen?
Yeah, hi.
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 Hi, how are you?
Good.
Hey, I don't know if you watched the Techno Crime Fighters with Dr. Horton and Karen Stewart and what. Anyway, they have their little podcast. But I don't know if you caught this, but they were talking about Lockheed Martin and how there's this gentleman named William Patrick Cox who has started this home network business, which is for TIs, for the people that attack TIs, in 48 of the 50 states. Have you heard about that?
No.
I just thought that was quite the bombshell.
Is he trying to support TIs?
No. It's a home-based business for people, for the perps.
Oh my gosh! Give me this guy's name.
It's William Patrick Cox.
Is it K-O-X? C-O-X?
I think it's C-O-X, yeah.
Okay.
And it's a home network business, and it's in 48 of the 50 states.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was just on one of the forums with Dr. Horton, and she was just really excited about that when Karen Stewart, the former NSA gal whistleblower, had brought that up because she had one of her, somebody was doing a lot of research for her, and they dug this up. And
wow.
So yeah, pretty interesting, huh?
That's pretty creepy.
Yeah, but thank you so much for your story. And for the definition, because that really brought me a lot of solace. Thank you.
Oh, good. Which part did?
Oh, the part with the dictionary. You know, when you were saying saying.
The definition for strength. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That helped me a lot. So thank you so much.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good night.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to Central. We've got a lot of Colorados on here. Okay, Central Colorado.
Doesn't surprise me, actually.
Yeah, I don't see that many Colorado. It depends. Some nights there'll be half Massachusetts on here, and some nights it's like half California, so you just never know. Hi, Colorado. You're on the call with Stephen.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good. I just wanted to thank you for sharing your story. I did want to reiterate what the other caller from Colorado said about the people around you possibly being affected by influences you're not aware of. I'm only in my second year. I'm kind of just starting my third year of targeting. And I've just learned by just ignoring unusual, ignoring it. It just works for me. And I mean, my family's distanced themselves from me, but I'm refusing to get angry with anybody. I got overloaded with information, and I kind of overloaded them with information probably, and I know we all have very different experiences. But it was something you said about these poets, these from El Salvador and Mexico had gone through torture and were these amazing poets because they had gone through that. And you talked about, how your spiritual strength grows with, with your homeless experiences and just being targeted.
Yeah.
And the Russian novelist Dostoevsky once wrote that the man with the greatest sense of sorrow will also be the man with the greatest sense of joy.
Yeah. Wow, beautiful. Yeah, great.
And I think that really applies to a lot of us. I've talked on one of these podcasts, but just the TIs that I'm hearing, there's just so much courage that it takes. I can't imagine. I'm only in, like I said, about 28 months of this, and I'm getting hit hard with synthetic telepathy, which to me would sound really almost exciting because of my adventurous nature. But what's on the other end is just
awful.
Unbelievable evil beyond anything I could imagine. I can't even repeat the things that I have to hear.
Wow.
But a year ago, I was just like holding my ears, like, how can I do this? And now I just try to get in touch with the love that's in my heart. And these people have to be so miserable. And it's just like, and I do think there's experimentation involved, but I just not giving them anything back, no anger back, no, just getting in touch with love and with God and with the soul.
Yeah, I agree.
Background noise, Colorado. Is there a way to step out of the background noise, or?
I have let me try. Is that better?
Yeah, it is a little better.
Okay, and I've also got a fan on here because I've got a noisy with neighbor campaign, and they've kind of been going crazy the whole hour I've been sitting here.
Wow.
So I've been trying to drown them out with a fan. And I just wanted to thank Ella again. And you can disregard, I had problems getting on initially. I did find my way on, so you could disregard that email. And thank you, Stephen, so much for sharing your story.
Oh, God, you're welcome. Yeah. Yeah, we're in a spiritual battle, and I think that any place that we can find some solace or some sense of, like, you know, I don't want to say pride, but, like, you know, it's sort of strange. It's almost like when you quote Dostoevsky, you're right. I mean, it's like, geez, how did we get selected? And maybe in a really awful, sad twist of fate, it's sort of like a badge of honor, you know, that we got selected for this. We must have been doing something right. And the people that are doing this, I mean, I mean, most normal or decent people would never want to go out of their way to torture, harass. They wouldn't enjoy. There's no, you know, there's no yah from that. It takes an awful person, you know, to want to do this to anyone else. So, you know,
it really is.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to Northwest California, and you guys, I have about 25 more minutes. So as long as Stephen's in for 25 minutes, should I have you for a little bit longer?
A little bit longer, yeah.
Okay, we'll be quick. Hi, Northwest California.
Hi, Ella. It's Barb.
Hi, Barb.
How are you doing anyway? You okay?
I'm doing well.
All right, good. Stephen, real quick, 2 quick comments and then 2 quick questions, and I'm very fast, really I am. I was thinking about your EST group, and somebody told me once, because I lived in a, quote, spiritual group for about 15 years, but let's call it a cult.
Okay.
So he said that all those groups were really studies in mind control.
Yeah.
And that there was usually an ex-CIA, FBI, or spy in the groups. And I thought about where I lived, and right up the hill on the property was a man named Conrad French. Well, I had somebody look into all I knew is that he was an ex-spy, and Ian Fleming based his James Bond series on him.
Wow.
That's all I knew, didn't think much about it. So I hear about this, and a year ago I look him up, huge. MI-16, hobnobbed with the Queen, British, you name it. So in reality, what was that guy doing living up in a little A-frame in a spiritual community of 150 people? So
wow.
I'm beginning to think the guy was right.
Was he the leader of the commune, kind of?
Pardon me? He wasn't really part of it. He'd come down for meals, but he lived right up the hill.
Weird.
And he was loaded, and he lived in this little A-frame. You read it, you got to look him up. You being a movie guy, have to look this guy up.
Yeah, what's his name?
I heard that Ian Fleming based James Bond on him, and his name was Conrad French, and you spell it with 2 F's, lowercase, F-F-R-E-N-C-H.
Okay.
Conrad O'Brien French. Wait till you read his bio. So, it's fascinating. I mean, you know. And the other thing I wanted to say, you were talking about losing friends because they start getting angry and stuff. And my experience is that I really think it's mind control, that they're being hit with anger. And they just blow up at you. And I think eventually they don't feel comfortable around you because they always feel angry. And I think that's all a piece of isolation, the isolation goal.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. I know it sounds far out, but yeah. Kim and I, Kim's never left me. Kim's always stuck by me. But collectively, her and I have had people, and I had it long before I met Kim for my whole, you know, solitary thing from 95 to 2002. But I would have people just absolutely, like never before, just hate me. And when I confronted them and said, "What do you hate me? What did I do? What did I do?" They couldn't you know, qualify it. They couldn't like put it into words. They couldn't say why they hated me, and then they almost like hated me more because they couldn't figure out why they were feeling what they felt. So it does sort of feel like it must be some kind of
blow up for no reason.
Yeah.
Okay, the 2 questions I wanted to ask is,
Sure.
number one, the bank box. I'm looking into this whole bank box thing. I actually was talking to 2 banks today.
Okay.
I can't figure out, how did they get the stuff out of your bank box?
I don't know.
Did you have your own personal keys and the
That's
bank
right.
has keys?
Yeah, when
Did
I
they-
had these keys, I got these safety boxes after I found out that my ex-wife, or my wife at the time, was a prostitute call girl and that my 4-year-old son had been threatened. I got these safety boxes after that, so I was the only person with the key to the safety box,
right?
And I was the only person on those safety boxes. And Kim was with me the last time we went to a bank here in Toronto, in Canada, and that bank, that safety box disappeared, and I remember it was in a sequence of safety boxes. So how do you disappear like 2017, 2018, 2019? How do you disappear a safety box that's in a sequence?
So are you thinking they broke into the bank? Because I questioned 2 banks about this very thing today. They say it's impossible.
I know. They told me the same thing, and this woman swore she'd get back to us, and then she didn't work there anymore when we called. And we never got an answer.
Got it. Okay.
And, it's one of these things. Like, I had a lot of years where I'd go and these strange things would happen, and someone would look at their computer screen, like at a bank, let's say, or wherever, and they'd say, oh, this has never happened before. And I'm like, oh, boy, here we go again.
Well, I'm hearing it on some of the calls. Somebody just said something like that last week, which got me thinking.
Yeah, I had it in 3 different banks and 3 different
Wow.
safety boxes in 3 different banks.
That's scary.
I don't know. I have no idea how. Someone could have impersonated me, but how do they make it disappear? I don't know.
I don't either.
I also had
the other thing I wanted to say, it was kind of sorry to hear that you had some people that you knew wanted to make documentaries on TIs. And I guess I can understand that it would be blocked. What about something like a small series with a targeted person in it as a sideline?
I don't think they'll go for it.
Really? Not even that?
Okay. No, they'll only exploit us, and they already are exploiting us in different TV shows. I mean, our stories are being told in different episodic shows and movies and things, but they're never going to acknowledge that it's a real thing. And these 2 producers, and I did this through Dr. John Hall. You probably know about Dr. John Hall.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he was actually the one that put me in touch with, I think, both the producers. And, and I said to the one young producer, and the guy was real gung-ho, and I'm like, I'll tell you my story, but, and I talked to him 2 or 3 times, and I said, there's probably, I hope not, but I'm not going to be disappointed if there comes a point when someone upstairs goes, we can't do this. And then what happened, the last thing I know happened with that was that his brother, the producer's brother, who was a young producer in L.A., his brother died in some mysterious car accident. And then right after that, the thing was canceled.
So we couldn't somehow fund our own little documentary that you could do or something like that?
Well, I just made a film about it, and my film's in festivals right now, and I self-funded it, and it's called The Spark. But my problem is I'm trying to get it out into festivals right now, and not to sound paranoid, but I don't have a whole lot of faith, because everything I do with the internet, and especially my email, all that stuff is looked at. So when I submit it to festivals, I know that somebody else is watching it. I walked it in to a #1 festival in Montreal, Canada, one of the top festivals in the world, where I know the directors of that festival, where Wim Wenders and Spike Lee and people like that are on their board of directors, and that guy knows me from my short films. Well, I walked it in and hand-delivered it, and because they know me, they put it in the festival, and I had people that were TIs in Montreal, I had people crying at the end of the film, but I've had no success in getting it in any other festivals, and that's just something I've had to live with, for 21 years. It's like, I don't know how they do it. I think the film's really great. It's about being targeted. You don't know this guy is targeted. You think maybe halfway through the film that the character might be crazy, and it's really not until the end of the film that you realize he was telling the truth all along. And he meets up with the scientist, and she confirms everything for him, what's being done to him. But yeah, it's a great little film. I made it myself. I financed it myself. But getting it out there, this has been my greatest dilemma.
What about Robert Redford as the Sundance?
Nah, I don't trust Redford as far as I can throw him. Robert Redford is part of the problem. Robert Redford's very concerned with his image, and Robert Redford, I found out, was into, or was anyway, into call girls and trying to cover that up. So, Redford's never going to do anything to help me.
Well, don't quit. You got it right in your hands. You couldn't get any closer.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep going on it, but I mean, it'd be nice if I met someone that has an alternative way to get it out and so people can see it, I mean, maybe even if people paid $3 to download it, something like that. I mean, I'm looking into those options, but right
now
I'm
still... That would happen on YouTube or something.
Well, no, YouTube's not really the way to go, but I think there are other ways to do it. I just don't know what those are yet, but I'm kind of confident something's going to come up with that.
I hope so.
Yeah, okay. I do, and I want people to see it.
Good work.
Even I just something.
Good work. You're so close.
But forget.
Thank you for being so honest. I mean, it was just enjoyable hearing you. You're just honest.
Oh, great. Thank you.
From your heart, honest. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Stephen, you know what I just thought about? Sean Stone, Oliver Stone's son, uses this venue called Gaia, and it's very inexpensive, but I think that might be something to think about, maybe something to explore. Maybe I can put you in touch with some people tomorrow?
That'd be fabulous. And I kind of know him a little bit. I think I might have met him when he was a kid, because when I lived in Venice, his dad had a restaurant, or his dad had offices really like a block away from me. And, I think I met Sean when he was a kid, and I met him through a girl online, and I had a short exchange. But what he did is, when I did an interview recently, he reposted that interview I did on his Facebook page. So I thought, right on, Sean, good for you,
Yeah, I don't know if Gaia is his platform per se. I know he uses it. So one way or another, we'll have to work that out, because he might know who's in charge or who to speak to at Gaia.
Oh, Sean, he'd be great. And I love his mind. I mean, he's such an articulate, smart guy,
So good. He's just a good human being.
I think he really is, yeah.
Ended up corrupt. He could have ended up like just one of those Hollywood party boys, and he didn't. So
not at all. No, he graduated Princeton, and I think he did his thesis or something on banking.
New World Order, yeah.
Was that it? And then he discovered all this stuff, and yet he actually had the integrity to, oh my God, this is going on, and it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. He's a really good guy, Sean Stone.
Super nice. And I saw him the first time I actually saw him, older at least, was on one of those Jesse Ventura ones with Jesse's son and him, and I'm like, oh my God, he believes in our cause and everything. So yeah, we'll have to touch base about that in the next couple of days. So
that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let me go to Virginia. So we just have time for a couple more questions, guys. Hi, East Virginia. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Virginia.
She might have fallen asleep.
Do you know Virginia?
Yeah, I know Miss Virginia, but she's sleeping, I have a feeling. So I'm going to go up to Massachusetts. Hi, Massachusetts.
Hi, Ella. Thank you very much.
Oh, hi, Kate.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. It's good to hear your voice.
Well, I want to thank you so much for having Stephen on, because I think for the first time I feel very comfortable with having my family listen to this recording because he presents himself so well. Thank you, Stephen.
Oh, God, that's the greatest compliment. Thanks a lot.
Oh, really? I mean, it's definitely going to make a difference for a lot of people. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you. You gave me a great compliment. That's just great.
Hey, I also wanted to mention, I know Carla earlier mentioned a couple of books, and I wanted to mention another book that came out more recently about the Phoenix program. And the reason I wanted to mention that, it's by Doug Valentine, called The CIA as Organized Crime. And the reason I wanted to mention it, you talked a little bit about the forum, and, I think I did some research and found that in the late 70s that Scientology, the CIA, and the NSA all intersected in their work.
Right.
I could not believe. And, to me, Satanism is all part of that.
Absolutely. So is at the top levels of Scientology. That's what it's all about, and that's what L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons were into.
Right, yeah. And the guy, I think his name was John Hart. I don't know if I have his first name right, but he was the first guy over in Vietnam to run the Phoenix program. And at the time in the book, it quotes that he wanted that program to go worldwide. And so it looks pretty obvious that that's what they turned it into, is it was a violent COINTELPRO, killings and everything. And, I just thought that it was important to keep in mind that the reason human research needs to be mentioned all the time is these organizations are pushing human research and torture and everything through all these connections that they have. It all comes together.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be doing a survey under William Benny from the NSA, and I do hope you will participate because there's a lot of people that are coming forward that are willing to participate in the survey, and I think it's going to make a big difference when we put all the data.
I didn't know Benny was going to do that. When was that decided?
Well, we've been working on it for over a year now, and we have it ready to go. It's just, Bill is very, very busy, and, trying to do a final meeting. I don't know how long it'll take, but we're hoping very, very soon.
Yeah, good.
And, they're getting some very amazing people coming forward, including psychiatrists that have,
finally.
And who have actually been attacked. And you said earlier, I don't know if you said your girlfriend or your girlfriend's mother was in the field.
She was a psychiatric nurse.
Was her mother or?
Yeah, her mother was a psychiatric nurse.
Did she ever say that she ran into this?
No, she didn't. But Kim had asked her mom, "Do you think Stephen's crazy?"
Oh.
Kim's mom, thank God, because her mom's known me since I was 16.
Yeah.
And her mom has since passed on, but her mom met me, and her mom said, "No, I don't think he's crazy. I think something really strange and terrible has happened to him and his children, and there's something going on, but Stephen is still, cognitive, like he's still Stephen." But
thank God she had that foresight,
No kidding, it really saved my life in a way.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, I'm so fortunate to have Kim these last 14, 15 years.
Yeah, that's a blessing.
It really is. Thank God, yeah.
Well, stay strong, and
all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you again, Kate. So that's pretty promising. I didn't know I can send you the link if you're bored or whatever. Stephen, you want to hear an interview where he discusses his belief in our experience in this program. So
that's neat.
It really will.
Wow, great.
It's really great. Okay, guys, I got time for about one more question. I'm going to come to California again.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, it's Linda.
Linda?
Hi, Linda.
Hi there, Ella. I'm sorry I didn't hear the first couple hours. You know, my perps keep me from the call a lot. But I need to talk. I'm sorry I didn't hear this gentleman that got the biggest compliment of the century from that woman that she would put her family on the call. It must have been a really good call. I need to just say something, Ellen, right now. That and I'm asking if anybody has any help or any ideas. They can always contact Derek, or they can contact Ella, or they can contact Linda, who knows how to get in touch with me. But my perps have gone like way
Linda,
way
I really
over.
want to go ahead. I really want to give you full attention, but can we let Stephen finish up his interview, and then you have my number. Will you call me directly, or maybe you want to go on Kyle's call? Because I just want to finish up the interview, and then we can put the attention on you. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, it's okay. I just need to tell some people. I just want to say some things and warn people that the targeting is. We're looking at something way worse heading our way, because they're doing a lot of experimenting with me, and it's really bad. It's really bad what they want to do with us. So you can finish up the interview, but I want to let some people know that we haven't seen the worst of what they have ready for us at all, not based on the experiments they have done on me for the last year.
I'm sorry, Linda.
Me too.
I know it's really tough. She's got it really tough. We're thinking about you. Okay, so I'm going to come to, I know Memoir. She's got it really bad.
Are they just attacking her with DEW in her body and stuff?
Yeah, it's really bad. I feel for her so deeply. Okay, let me go up here to Barbara. Where's Barbara? Barbara. Here she is. Okay. Go ahead, Miss Barbara.
Stephen, is this T Idaho?
Pardon?
Is this T Idaho?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it yet. T Idaho.
Did you used to do a talk show call, and your handle was T Idaho?
No.
Okay, someone told me that you were the same person.
No.
I didn't think so because your voice is different, but I had to ask anyway.
Okay, no, it's not me.
Listen, you were talking about the Clintons, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, I know some people from Haiti.
Wow.
And did you know what they were doing down there?
Well, did a lot of things, but they're trafficking kids. They're also raping and pillaging the Haitian, the gold mine. They gave that to Clinton's brother. Like, they've done a lot of terrible things. Yeah, they're just rapers and pillagers, those people.
Well, what I heard was that Clinton himself controlled all the charities going into Haiti.
Right.
And he built like 3 houses.
Yeah, that's right. And they raised.
And then Hillary controls all the communication going in and out of the country.
Wow.
And the brother owns all the
gold,
the mines. Yeah.
They're also if you ever listen to George Webb, he speaks about all the organ trafficking going on as well in Haiti, and organ trafficking is huge. So it's child trafficking, organ trafficking. These kind of charities like the Clinton Foundation are so. Yeah, they're just.
This was from guys that were from Haiti, and they were very knowledgeable about what's going on in their island, and boy, are they mad about it too.
No kidding. I don't blame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, I know. I mean, how this isn't mainstream. Well, you know why it's not mainstream news, because it's the same bundle of people. But no, it's absolutely what they've done to Haiti is so diabolical.
Well, that's the Milton Friedman philosophy. Have you ever read Naomi Klein's book, The Shock Doctrine?
Well,
she
read
talks
Naomi
about
Klein.
it in
I
there.
haven't read that, but yeah, I've read some of her work. Yeah, she's great.
Where the rich go in and they'll rape, pillage, and burn.
Right.
When there's chaos, and that's his philosophy.
That's right, and they've done that in Libya, Syria. I mean, they keep doing it over and over again, right?
Yeah,
and
they
it's a
sure
lot
have.
of things they do. It's not just one thing. It's not just to overthrow a government, take the resources, take the children, take their organs. Like these are diabolical people. I mean, truly diabolical.
Well, it's asset stripping. Did you ever hear, someone mentioned this earlier about Lockheed Martin and Dr. Catherine Horton. Did you ever listen to any of her YouTube videos?
Yeah, I actually suggested her to my friends, Angie and Jim, and they interviewed her because I'd heard one of her interviews with, what was his name, Richie Allen in England. And I loved her interview, and she's so articulate and smart. So yeah, I know of her. Yeah.
So these people you just mentioned did an interview of her.
Yeah.
Is it on YouTube?
Yeah.
How would I find it?
It's Victorious Libertas or something. I can't remember. Their name's always funny. But if you look up Dr. Catherine Horton, she's on there. She's got an interview with them, and I did like 2 or 3 interviews with them as well. And I did an interview with. I brought on my friend John Hall, and John Hall and I did an interview with them.
Now, you did a documentary or a movie that you want to.
I did a feature film.
A feature film that you want to put out there.
Well, it's out right now in festivals, and I'm submitting it to festivals. But it's a film. Like, it's not a documentary. It's like it tells the story about this photographer who falls under deep surveillance, and he doesn't know why. And then it sort of unravels from there.
Now, when is the last time you tried to push that on a festival? Not push it on, but put it into a festival.
Oh, I've done that for the last couple of months.
Oh, you have, and you haven't got any.
I've had 2 or 3 responses, but not a lot. And I know that my emails are compromised and stuff like that, so I can't worry about everything. But I know that it went in one of the best festivals in the world, the Festival de Nouveau Cinema in Montreal, and it was, I did very well there. So it's not like I'm not like feeling insecure. Oh, it's this really awful film that nobody wants. But, as far as who's watching my emails and what's said behind my back and how things are undermined, 21 years later, it's like, like in the first year, if I'd said that, maybe people could say I was, being paranoid or crazy. But I know that, I know that things are compromised that I try to get out.
Are you going to try to keep putting that documentary out?
Yeah, it's not a documentary though. It's a feature film with like a storyline. Like I tell the story of someone that gets targeted, but it's not done as a documentary. It's done as a as a film. As a movie. So.
I don't care. I just want you to get it out there.
Yeah, me too.
You know what I mean?
Me too.
I mean, have you thought of like renting a place and doing it yourself? Like I know in Beverly, Massachusetts, they have a theater here, but it's open to other venues. It's not just movies. You can rent it and put on your own show and do your own stuff.
Well, no, I've thought of that, and the museum here in Ontario was interested in putting it on. But to be honest, I spent so much money and time doing it that, I'm working construction, so I can have some, money for food and rent and stuff, and I'm just so, backlogged, and then I did an art show on Saturday, so I'm so backlogged just trying to keep my head above the water. And when I come home at night, I submit it to film festivals, and I'm hoping that it gets picked up. I mean, ideally, what it needs is like a couple more festivals to pick it up, and then it would be great if I could screen it in cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, any kind of major cities, so that people that are aware of targeting can go see it.
Listen, this other TI, I just wanted to quickly end with this. His name is Mike Mason, and he bought an audio spotlight, and he's going to demonstrate that is in a protest in D.C. the 24th and 25th of this month in D.C.
Oh, okay.
So if you would be interested in going, Ella, I'm sure, could give you more information on it. But we'd love to have you there. And he bought the audio spotlight from contributions from all TIs.
Wow.
And he's working with it.
Okay.
And he just got it this week, and he's playing with it. He wants to see if it will counter affect V2K.
Okay. Yeah.
And he wants to demonstrate it on the crowds to let them know that V2K, this is how V2K happens and stuff like that. So if you're interested in going, we'd love to have you. Karen Stewart, who's the NSA whistleblower, it will be a speaker there also.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know if I can afford to go, but yeah, if I could, that'd be a great thing to do. I'd love to see that kind of demonstration, show people that it's, what it is.
Well, I'm going, and like I said, Ella can give you the contact information if you're really interested, or if you know anybody else who would be interested in going.
Yeah, good. Okay,
we need numbers, you know that. We need numbers.
Right. Send that to me, Ella.
Talk to you later, Stephen.
Okay.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on. So people want you to know how much they appreciate you coming on, and say thank you so much, and you help everybody feel like we're not alone. And and I'll get in touch with you about a couple of points. The one about Gaia and Sean, and a couple other things too. People think you should be maybe on InfoWars and some other things if you're interested in doing something like that. So, but yeah, we'll talk in the next 24 hours or so.
Perfect.
And I just thank you. I really appreciate it.
No, it was really great. It was fun.
Yeah, and if I'm still here in a year, then maybe you can be my anniversary guest again.
I can't even believe that I don't even remember doing it a year ago. Isn't that awful?
No, you were staying in a hotel.
I don't know.
It was more like a conversation. I had no clue how to interview. You were my first person ever.
So funny. And I must have been in some rinky-dink hotel or something.
You said you were in some rinky-dink hotel. You said that you were busy all day, and I kind of begged you, and you said, okay, I'll come on for a while. And it was just the six of us, and we were all just chatting, and it was nice.
That's great. Well, forgive me for having a shitty memory.
No, that's okay. God. It happens.
This was
fun.
Happens. Thanks a lot for doing tonight with me.
Well, thank you. And we'll speak really. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.